Carlos had always taken pride in his work. Day after day, he spent hours in his small corner of the auto repair shop, grease smudging his hands and oil stains decorating his worn-out coveralls. For him, there was something magical about working with cars, transforming broken-down vehicles into reliable machines that could safely carry families on their journeys. It was not just a job. It was a passion. He often arrived before sunrise, the morning light barely filtering through the windows of the garage. The soft hum of the city waking up filled the air, and as he prepped his tools and surveyed the vehicles waiting for repair, Carlos felt a sense of purpose. Each day brought its own challenges, but he was committed to solving problems and providing excellent service to customers who relied on him. Carlos loved his family fiercely. He was married to Maria, a kind-hearted woman who supported him through thick and thin. They had one son, Miguel, whose laughter was like music in their home. On weekends, Carlos cherished spending time with them. Whether it was going for ice cream or watching Miguel ride his bike, he treasured those moments above all else. His family motivated him to work hard and strive for a better life. Their little home was modest but filled with warmth and love. Pictures of family gatherings adorned the walls, reminding Carlos of the joy they shared even when times were tough. He wanted nothing more than to provide for them and make sure they felt safe and happy. That evening, as he prepared to celebrate Miguel's birthday at the garage with a small cake and decorations, he couldn't help but smile at the thought of watching his son blow out the candles. Little did Carlos know that his special day would take an unexpected turn. Moments like this should be carefree, yet ominous clouds were brewing in the form of his boss, Mr. Reynolds, a man known for his arrogance and lack of respect for others. As Carlos worked on the last vehicle before the party began, he noticed Mr. Reynolds pacing around the shop with an annoyed expression. Carlos tried to brush off the tension. After all, he had dealt with Mr. Reynolds before. The shop owner often berated employees for minor mistakes or slow progress, believing that loud words could instill fear and encourage productivity. But Carlos had learned long ago that such tactics only revealed insecurities within leaders who felt they needed to maintain power through intimidation. When Maria and Miguel arrived, carrying balloons and birthday decorations, Carlos's heart swelled with joy. He greeted them with a warm embrace, grateful for this little slice of happiness amidst long workdays. However, just as they were about to cut the cake together, Mr. Reynolds stormed into their moment. Eyes narrowed and voice raised, Mr. Reynolds called out to Carlos in front of everyone. "You're so slow at your work. You're useless here. This is embarrassing." His words sliced through the festive atmosphere like glass shattering on a floor. Carlos froze, the sting of humiliation washing over him like icy water. He looked at Maria's shocked face and saw Miguel's innocent eyes wide with confusion. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. Each derogatory word clung to him like chains dragging him down into despair. The laughter faded into silence as if the world had suddenly stopped turning. Feeling defeated but determined not to show weakness in front of his family, Carlos swallowed hard against the rising wave of hurt. He silently turned away from Mr. Reynolds, unable to respond without letting anger seep into his voice. A voice meant only for love today. Without another word, he left the garage behind him. Every step felt heavy as he walked away from that moment of humiliation etched in his heart. Outside, he breathed deeply as tears threatened to escape. He knew he had done nothing to deserve such treatment. But deep down inside, Carlos held onto something that no one else knew about him. A kindness that transcended his circumstances. Years ago, he had helped restore a vintage car for Victor Dalton, a wealthy collector who appreciated genuine talent over monetary exchange. It had been a joyful experience filled with respect, and he had refused payment simply because it felt right. Little did he realize how significant that act of kindness would become in shaping his future. A future that promised hope even amid heartbreak and shame. As the clock ticked closer to Miguel's birthday celebration, the atmosphere in the garage buzzed with excitement. Carlos had transformed a corner of the repair shop into a makeshift party space, cheerfully adorned with colorful streamers and a bright happy birthday banner hanging loosely from the ceiling beams. The scent of freshly baked cake wafted through the air, mingling with the familiar smell of motor oil and rubber. a combination that, for Carlos, felt oddly comforting. He had set up a small table with an assortment of snacks, chips, sodas, and Miguel's favorite cupcakes topped with vibrant frosting. Carlos smiled at his handiwork, imagining how happy his son would be when he arrived. He could almost hear Miguel's laughter ringing in his ears as he pictured the candles flickering on the cake, ready to be blown out. Finally, as the sun began to dip low in the sky, casting a golden hue through the garage windows, Carlos heard the sound of familiar voices outside. His heart raced with joy as he turned to see Maria and Miguel walking towards him, their faces lit up with anticipation. Maria held a box filled with balloons while Miguel bounced along beside her, his eyes sparkling like stars. "Surprise!" they shouted as they entered the garage. Miguel let go of Maria's hand and rushed toward his father, throwing his arms around Carlos's waist. "Dad, I can't wait to eat cake." The delight in his son's voice filled Carlos's heart with warmth. "Happy birthday, buddy," Carlos replied, kneeling down to embrace Miguel tightly. He savored this moment. It was everything he had hoped for, a time filled with love and laughter. Maria stepped forward, her smile radiant as she looked at her husband and son embracing. "I brought your favorite balloons. We're going to make this birthday unforgettable," she said cheerfully as she carefully released them into the air. Together, they decorated the garage further, attaching balloons to toolboxes and hanging colorful streamers around various workbenches. Carlos watched them work side by side with admiration. Their laughter echoed off the walls, creating a joyful symphony that drowned out any worries he had about work or Mr. Reynolds. As they set up for the birthday celebration, Carlos felt grateful for the simple, yet beautiful moment shared with his family. He glanced at Maria and was reminded of how supportive she had always been throughout their journey together. The late nights spent working overtime or fixing unexpected car troubles, and how their bond had only grown stronger. "Okay, Miguel. Time to cut your cake," Carlos called out after everything was set up. His son bounced over excitedly as if he were made of pure energy. They gathered around the small table where a beautifully crafted cake awaited them, layered in creamy frosting, topped with candles flickering like tiny flames waiting for Miguel's wish. With all eyes on him and anticipation building in the air, Miguel grinned widely as he leaned over to blow out the candles. The flickering lights dimmed under his breathless wish before erupting into cheers from both parents. The moment was perfect, full of love and togetherness. But just as they were about to slice into the cake and enjoy their treats together, a shadow loomed at the entrance of the garage. Mr. Reynolds stood glaring at them with an expression that could sour milk. Carlos felt a jolt of dread wash over him as Mr. Reynolds strode inside without an invitation. His presence instantly darkened the previously joyful atmosphere like a sudden storm cloud overshadowing sunlight. "What's going on here?" Mr. Reynolds barked loudly, breaking through their celebration without warning. His voice sliced through their laughter like a knife cutting through soft cake. The festive energy faded instantly as tension filled every corner of the garage. Maria's smile faltered while Miguel looked up at his father with wide eyes filled with confusion. Carlos took a deep breath but held on to that lingering sweetness of family joy for just a moment longer before reality kicked in again. An unwelcome reminder that not everyone shared in their happiness today. As Mr. Reynolds began to speak again, unaware of how deeply he was disturbing this special occasion, Carlos's heart sank at what would follow next. A moment that would turn this day upside down forever. As the festive atmosphere hung in the air, Carlos and his family were buzzing with excitement, ready to dig into cake and celebrate. But Mr. Reynolds's abrupt entrance sliced through the moment like a cold wind on a summer day. The way he marched into the garage, shoulders tense and brows furrowed, sent a chill down Carlos's spine. It was as if a storm had rolled in, darkening their little paradise. "What's going on here?" Mr. Reynolds barked, his voice booming across the garage. The joy that had filled the space just moments ago faded and turned to dread as Miguel stepped back, holding tightly onto Maria's hand. Carlos felt heat rise in his cheeks while Maria's smile faltered under the pressure of their boss's harsh presence. "It's Miguel's birthday celebration. We were just about to cut the cake," Carlos replied, trying to maintain his composure. He didn't want this moment ruined, but deep down he could sense that confrontation was inevitable. Mr. Reynolds scoffed, rolling his eyes dramatically as if mocking not just Carlos but also the joy of a child's birthday. "A birthday party in my garage? Are you kidding me?" he snapped. "You think you can waste company time like this? Do you even care about your job?" His words dripped with disdain, sending waves of humiliation crashing over Carlos. Miguel looked up at his father with confusion, not understanding why a simple celebration was met with such hostility. Maria squeezed her son's hand tightly as she shot a defensive glare at Mr. Reynolds, her expression filled with disbelief. "It's just a small gathering. Nothing wrong with that," she interjected, hoping to diffuse the tension. But Mr. Reynolds wasn't having it. He turned sharply towards Carlos, eyes narrowed and full of contempt. "You're always so slow at your work. You're practically useless here," he yelled. Each insult stung like a bee, and Carlos could feel every gaze in the garage shift toward him, his family watching intently while Mr. Reynolds tore him down. Carlos clenched his fists at his sides to hide the trembling from anger and embarrassment that threatened to spill over. He thought of all the long hours he had dedicated to this job and how hard he worked to support his family. None of that seemed to matter now under Mr. Reynolds's scornful scrutiny. "Do you want to be an embarrassment in front of your family?" Mr. Reynolds continued, launching verbal attacks with no regard for how deeply they affected Carlos or how misplaced his anger was during what should have been a joyful occasion. The tone of ridicule rang clear amidst the cruel laughter that followed. Feeling trapped under the weight of shame, Carlos fought against tears forming in his eyes, not wanting to show weakness in front of Miguel or Maria. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about showing his family that they were worth defending even against harsh words. "Please stop," Carlos finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper but laced with defiance. He took a small step forward, trying to stand tall despite feeling like he was shrinking under Mr. Reynolds' tirade. "This is Miguel's special day." But Mr. Reynolds merely scoffed at his plea, seemingly unfazed by the pain he caused. "Just know that I won't tolerate this kind of nonsense in my shop. You're lucky I don't fire you right now." His face twisted into an arrogant smirk as he surveyed what once had been a joyful scene now overtaken by tension and discomfort. A sharp gasp escaped from Maria's lips, and Miguel clutched her waist tighter while watching the exchange unfold with wide-eyed uncertainty. This wasn't how any birthday celebration should be. It was all spiraling out of control. Carlos drew in a deep breath, determined not to let anger dictate his actions or ruin Miguel's birthday any further. As humiliating as it was to endure these insults publicly, he knew he needed to protect his son from witnessing any more negativity today. "I'll deal with this later," Carlos said firmly but quietly, trying to find strength within himself despite the turmoil unfolding around him. Without waiting for another word from Mr. Reynolds, he turned away from the confrontation, choosing silence over anger, dignity over disgrace. Even as humiliation churned inside him. As he walked toward the back of the garage seeking refuge from this debacle and pain of embarrassment etched deeply into his heart, Carlos held on to one shining memory from before, the vintage car he'd restored for Victor Dalton months ago, an act done purely out of kindness without expectation, and allowed hope to flicker anew alongside sadness swirling inside him. The atmosphere in the garage, once filled with laughter and light, now felt suffocatingly heavy. Carlos stood there, a whirlwind of emotions raging within him as Mr. Reynolds's insults echoed in his mind. Each harsh word seemed to reverberate through his soul, and for a moment, he felt as though he was being swallowed by darkness. It was humiliating to be publicly belittled, especially in front of the two people he loved most. Carlos glanced at Miguel and Maria, their faces reflecting shock and confusion. Miguel didn't understand why his father was being yelled at. All he knew was that today was supposed to be special, his birthday, and it felt as though that joy was being stolen away from him. Maria's expression bore both concern and anger. She looked ready to confront Mr. Reynolds but held back, likely thinking of Carlos's wish to avoid further conflict. With every degrading comment from Mr. Reynolds, Carlos could feel the urge to fight back swell inside him like a tidal wave ready to crash. He wanted to yell back, to defend himself against the unprovoked attack, but something held him back. An internal voice urging restraint, a reminder that this moment wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Miguel and Maria. Their happiness depended on how he handled this situation. "Please stop," Carlos had whispered before turning away from confrontation, choosing silence over anger. He wished for strength. A fiery retort would have felt satisfying, but deep down he knew it might also turn into an explosion that would leave everyone hurt even more. Instead of reacting recklessly, he focused on holding on to something more important: his dignity. It took immense willpower not to let the shame and embarrassment boil over into rage. Carlos had worked hard to create a joyful environment for his son's birthday celebration, pouring love and effort into making everything special. It would mean little now if he allowed anger to dictate his actions. Despite the humiliation from Mr. Reynolds' words, Carlos made a choice. He chose dignity, perhaps not in the way anyone else would expect, but rather by leaving quietly instead of causing more scenes. Leaving was not surrender but an assertion of strength. It meant walking away with head held high while knowing that this moment did not define him. As he turned from the chaos unfolding behind him, a chaotic scene that no longer resembled a birthday party, he felt tears well in his eyes. But Carlos refused to let them fall. Instead, he pushed through the pain and walked toward the back of the garage where there were no prying eyes or judging whispers. Once behind closed doors, he leaned against the wall, squeezing his eyes shut against the world around him. Each breath was shaky and filled with frustration but also relief. Relief knowing that he wasn't going to stoop low enough to engage further. Instead, he would try to calm himself before rejoining his family. In those quiet moments alone, thoughts drifted to Victor Dalton, the reclusive billionaire with whom he had shared something genuine and kind long ago. Restoring that vintage car for Victor hadn't been merely a job. It had been an act of pure passion because Carlos believed in bringing beauty back to something that had lost its shine. Victor had seen potential where others saw nothing. His appreciation had felt like a gift for which Carlos never asked for anything in return. Remembering that selfless act infused Carlos with hope amidst despair, as if shining rays of kindness and respect could pierce through the gloom Mr. Reynolds had cast over him today. "Good things come around," he whispered softly to himself while taking another deep breath. If Victor recognized his worth then, it seemed possible that brighter days might still lie ahead. As much as pain etched deep scars in his heart today, love for Miguel and Maria fueled courage within him. With determination building up again inside him like embers igniting after cold winds blew through them, Carlos wiped his eyes dry. Even as remnants of humiliation lingered around, and resolved with strength. Someday soon, this darkness would be eclipsed by light again. One way or another, life would find a balance capable of supporting those who appreciate kindness over ridicule. As Carlos leaned against the wall in the quietened garage, the stinging words from Mr. Reynolds replayed in his mind, fading into the background as a different memory emerged. One that took him back to a sun-soaked afternoon several months prior. It had been an unusually warm day as Carlos had worked in the garage, surrounded by the familiar sounds of tools clanking and engines revving. The sun streamed through the windows, and he lost himself in the rhythm of his work. Just as he finished up another routine repair, he noticed an extravagant vintage car parked outside, a deep blue beauty that gleamed like a jewel under the sunlight. Carlos couldn't help but feel drawn to it. As he wiped his hands on a rag, he stepped outside to admire the sleek curves and polished chrome. The car was parked next to a nondescript sedan, and standing next to it was Victor Dalton, a mysterious billionaire known for his private collection of rare cars. Many people spoke about him in awe, but in that moment, Carlos only saw an opportunity to connect with someone who shared his love for automobiles. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Carlos remarked, nodding toward the vintage car. Victor turned to him with an intrigued expression, as if surprised that anyone besides himself would appreciate its design. "Yes, indeed," Victor replied with a hint of a smile. "It's a classic model, hard to find these days." Carlos shared stories about the craftsmanship that went into restoring vehicles like this one, and how he often searched for parts to preserve their original charm. He could see Victor's eyes light up as they discussed engines and designs. The two men lost in conversation while time seemed to stand still. After some moments, Victor sighed heavily and looked at the car before speaking again. Unfortunately, I bought this beauty at an auction and found out it needs quite a bit of work to be roadworthy. His disappointment was evident. I thought the seller had assured me it was in fine condition. Carlos's heart sank at the challenge laid before him. He could have easily offered his services for payment. After all, restoration work required skill and time. But what came to mind instead was his passion for helping others see their dreams realized. "I'll help you fix it," Carlos offered without hesitation, surprising even himself with such confidence. "You don't need to pay me. I can make it right." Victor looked taken aback, almost incredulous. "You would do that? For free?" Carlos shrugged off the surprise as if it were common sense. "It's just what you do when you love cars so much," he said. "It deserves a second chance." For several weeks, they worked side by side at the garage, both men dedicated to restoring the vintage car to its former glory. While Victor provided guidance on specific features and styles from his own experience collecting classic cars, Carlos put in long hours, cleaning parts and patching up damage, each stroke of paint and turn of the wrench filled with purpose. Throughout those days together, they developed not just a friendship, but also a mutual respect for each other's talent and passion. With each completed task, laughter lingered in the air like poetry between them. Evenings were spent discussing cars over glasses of soda rather than bills. There were no customer transactions involved, only two men united by their shared interests. Finally came the day when they unveiled the newly restored vintage car under the warm glow of the garage lights. It gleamed with fresh polish, a testament to their hard work, and both men stood back admiring it together. Victor's face broke into an ecstatic grin. "I can't believe we did it. You've outdone yourself," Victor exclaimed, joy radiating from every corner of his being. Carlos felt pride surge within him as he took in Victor's elation. But when Victor offered payment for his services, he simply shook his head. "No payment necessary. I just wanted to see it back on the road where it belongs," Carlos replied earnestly. Despite insisting on not taking money for his efforts, Victor remained appreciative and promised that one day he would find a way to repay Carlos. In those moments gone by now held glimmers of hope within them. As Carlos remembered this past kindness during his recent humiliation at Mr. Reynolds' hand, warmth enveloped him like comfort from an old favorite sweater. It reminded him that true worth isn't measured solely by monetary gains but through bonds formed around passion and generosity. An affirmation that there are good people who recognize value beyond ridicule. "Good things come around," he whispered again softly into that quiet space behind closed doors, warming himself against feelings of despair while holding tightly onto hope for brighter days ahead. The warmth of sunlight filtering through the cracks in the garage no longer felt comforting. Instead, it amplified Carlos's sense of isolation. He leaned against the cold metal wall, feeling like a ghost in his own world. The echo of Mr. Reynolds' insults still resonated, haunting him even as he tried to push those memories aside. After leaving the party, Carlos had found a quiet corner to gather his thoughts, but it was proving harder than he had hoped. He was no stranger to challenges at work. Every mechanic faced obstacles daily, but this had struck a deeper chord. The sting of humiliation mixed with anger and disbelief filled him, causing internal turmoil that felt almost suffocating. How could someone he worked alongside for years hurl such cruel words without a second thought? His mind drifted back to Miguel's innocent face when Mr. Reynolds shouted at him. A wave of guilt washed over Carlos as he imagined his son's confusion. A day meant for celebration now overshadowed by an adult's cruelty. The sight of Maria's disappointment lingered in his heart like a shadow that wouldn't fade. In the midst of this emotional storm, Carlos remembered what had initially inspired him to become a mechanic: love for his craft and desire to help others bring their dreams back to life through restoration and repair. Despite knowing he was far more skilled than Mr. Reynolds acknowledged, self-doubt crept in like an unwelcome intruder. Taking a deep breath, Carlos pushed himself away from the wall and glanced around the now silent garage. Tools neatly hung on hooks and cars waiting for service stood like witnesses to his distress. Each machine represented not just work but passion. Each one held potential waiting for someone who understood its worth. Suddenly remembering Victor Dalton's vintage car brought a renewed sense of clarity amidst the chaos swirling in his mind. He recalled the pride he'd felt while restoring that classic vehicle. Not just for its beauty, but because Victor trusted him enough to take on such an important task without payment or expectation in return. It was an act born from kindness, a connection forged around genuine appreciation for craftsmanship. Carlos realized those moments weren't mere memories. They were reminders that generosity could spark hope, healing hurt, and make significant impacts in lives beyond monetary value. As painful as today had been, it wasn't going to define him. Instead, it could be impetus toward new beginnings. Good things come around, he whispered again into the solitude of the garage, allowing himself room to believe it could be true. Strength began swelling within him. If Victor could recognize worth beyond money or reputation, why couldn't he? Perhaps there was potential within himself patiently waiting for something big and bright on the horizon. Each step forward became easier as snippets of conversation with Victor echoed within him. Those discussions filled with laughter over tools clinking together had instilled belief in himself at crucial moments when doubt threatened to take hold. Carlos closed his eyes momentarily to envision what might come next. What if this ordeal eventually became part of a tale about resilience instead of bitterness? What if he channeled this experience into something transformative? He wanted Miguel and Maria to know they deserved better than fear or shame. They should never have to witness their father humiliated like that again. With firm resolve taking root inside him, Carlos moved toward his tools with newfound purpose. This wasn't just about fixing cars anymore, but about rebuilding pride and dignity lost today under Mr. Reynolds' lashings. Whether it meant starting anew or taking control somehow, clarity washed over him like fresh rain cleansing sins away. Amidst uncertainty about what lay ahead, even regarding employment, Carlos found encouragement among flickering memories reminding him that acts born from genuine kindness leave lasting impacts on people's lives. Perhaps Victor's recognition would serve as proof that unshakable hope still exists. It would certainly take time for wounds to heal, but Carlos was determined not just to endure but thrive despite them, moving forward into brighter days ahead alongside families centered around love rather than ridicule. A future constructed firmly upon foundations laid discreetly through passions explored with joy rather than hindered by negativity distilling from those unwilling or unable to see worth where it truly lies. Victor Dalton was not just any billionaire. He was a man of peculiar habits and extraordinary taste, especially when it came to classic cars. Known for his reclusive nature, Victor preferred the company of engines over people, often retreating to his expansive estate filled with an array of rare vehicles rather than mingling with the elite. Many speculated that he had built walls around himself due to a deep sense of integrity, one that made him respect craftsmanship above all else. To Victor, a car was more than just a means of transportation. Each vehicle represented art, a testament to the engineers and craftsmen who poured their heart and soul into creating something magnificent. He often spent hours in his garage, meticulously examining every detail and ensuring they were restored to their original glory. Every scratch and dent told a story that deserved to be preserved. Every polished curve echoed decades of innovation and passion. Despite his wealth, Victor had little patience for superficiality or grand gestures meant to impress. Instead, he valued authenticity in every interaction. When discussing cars, he engaged with mechanics, like Carlos, not as mere service providers but as artists who understood the true essence of what they were repairing. He sought out those who demonstrated skill without seeking accolades or financial gain. It was an ethos he embodied himself, integrity over prestige. However, Victor's reclusiveness extended beyond his love for automobiles. He rarely attended social events and occasionally turned down lucrative offers from collectors eager to engage him in transactions or partnerships. This behavior only fueled rumors about him being out of touch or eccentric. Yet those who understood his values recognized a deep passion for craftsmanship that transcended mere business. It was personal. Earlier that year, Carlos had been fortunate enough to step into this world when he met Victor during one fateful afternoon at the garage. As he reflected on their time together now, Carlos recalled how Victor's eyes lit up when discussing the finer points of mechanics, the two men bonding over shared enthusiasm for restoring creativity to things long forgotten. It was one of those rare encounters where two souls connected through the love of their craft, ignoring barriers like wealth or fame. This admiration was mutual. Victor viewed Carlos not simply as an ordinary mechanic, but as someone who genuinely respected what it meant to restore vehicles from years gone by. While other mechanics may have focused solely on making a profit off repairs or quick fixes, Carlos invested time and energy into understanding each vehicle's unique character, which resonated deeply with Victor. Their collaboration on the vintage car hadn't merely been about restoration. It had morphed into something meaningful, a friendship grounded in appreciation for talent, where money played no role in defining worth. The experience stood out in Carlos's mind like a beacon of hope during difficult times. Now faced with the harsh reality of Mr. Reynolds' insults still echoing painfully in his ears, Carlos found solace in reflecting on how Victor had always seen beyond monetary value. A reminder that there are people in this world who understand genuine effort and generosity are priceless qualities. As these thoughts spiraled through his mind while standing alone within the garage walls, where tools hung systematically above silent cars waiting patiently, Carlos felt renewed inspiration building inside him like fuel stoked by flames, ready to ignite anew. The moment became clear. He would not allow Mr. Reynolds' belittlement to overshadow what truly mattered. The connections forged through mutual respect and shared passion for cars that could transform lives positively despite challenges lurking outside those walls. With determination settling back into place alongside reflection upon moments spent alongside Victor Dalton, the reclusive billionaire collector whose values struck chords deep within, Carlos resolved that if opportunities were ahead influenced by such relationships shaped through kindness and craftsmanship, then better days would surely follow soon enough regardless of today's troubles. Victor had offered more than restoration aid for an elegant car. He gifted Carlos with belief. A belief strong enough to remind him that true worth emerges not from ridicule, but from understanding and respect cultivated through genuine friendship grounded firmly upon shared passions embraced fully without hesitation nor demands attached. As the days passed after the humiliating encounter at the garage, Carlos reflected on his situation, grappling with feelings of anger and despair. However, he also found a growing sense of hope stemming from his fond memories of Victor Dalton. Memories that reminded him there were people in the world who truly understood integrity and kindness. Little did Carlos know that Victor was also reflecting on their friendship and considering how best to respond to the news about Carlos's recent plight. Victor had always prided himself on loyalty, whether to his vehicles or the few trusted friends he allowed into his life. After spending time with Carlos during the restoration of the vintage car, he felt a sense of respect and admiration for the mechanic's selfless dedication to his craft. When he heard about what happened at the garage, how Mr. Reynolds had publicly insulted and fired Carlos, Victor was troubled. He couldn't shake off the feeling that he needed to take action. One evening, sitting in his expansive garage surrounded by cars that represented years of innovation and stories, Victor made a decision. He would not let such a cruel act against someone who had shown him generosity go unpunished. He would return the favor for Carlos in a way that mattered, a gesture rooted in loyalty and justice. The next day, Victor contacted a real estate agent to discuss acquiring more than just a few classic cars. He had bigger plans in mind. The idea of taking ownership of the very auto company where Carlos had been treated so poorly ignited a fire within him. It wasn't merely about buying a business. It was about righting a wrong and providing an opportunity for someone who deserved it. Meanwhile, Carlos was navigating his newfound uncertainty. Even with moments of inspiration sparked by memories of Victor, the tedium of waiting in a quiet garage weighed heavily on him. He spent hours working on minor repairs for friends and neighbors, but without a steady job or his usual rhythm, it felt as though something essential had been stripped away. Just as Carlos began to lose faith in what lay ahead, an unexpected knock at the garage door broke through the monotony. Pushing open the heavy door, he found standing before him none other than Victor Dalton himself, looking as eager as he was serious. "Carlos," Victor said firmly yet warmly, "I've heard what happened at your garage." Carlos blinked in surprise, taken aback by Victor's presence, but aware that this encounter was significant. "Victor, I didn't expect to see you here," he stammered, struggling to mask the emotions coursing through him. "I wanted to talk to you about your situation," Victor continued, stepping inside and shutting the door behind him. "What happened was wrong, unforgivable even, and I believe you deserve better." Carlos felt something stir within him at his words. Without knowing exactly how to respond, he simply nodded, realizing that someone else had recognized his worth and cared enough to act. Victor went on to explain his plan. "I've bought out your old company. It's now yours." He paused, allowing Carlos time to absorb what he was saying. "You should be running it, not enduring ridicule from someone like Reynolds." At first, Carlos struggled to process this generous act. His heart raced as disbelief took hold. Could it really be true? "You did what?" The words tumbled out in a mix of shock and gratitude. Victor smiled, genuinely pleased by Carlos's reaction. "Yes, this should be your dream realized, the chance to lead your own shop with integrity and pride restored." Tears filled Carlos's eyes as emotions overwhelmed him. Words failed to express what he felt inside. Gratitude intertwined with relief swept through him like waves cascading onto a shore after tumultuous storms. This means everything," Carlos stammered through choked breath, staring wide-eyed at Victor as if he were staring at an apparition of hope returning from beyond despair. "No thanks necessary," Victor replied simply with a knowing look. "You've earned this through your passion and dedication alone." In that moment, layers of pain caused by Mr. Reynolds' insults peeled away like old paint, revealing vibrant colors underneath. A new beginning awaited just ahead where respect reigned over ridicule. This generous act encapsulated loyalty not only as a response but also as an affirmation. Victor believed in redemption while showing that kindness can indeed ripple back around when least expected. As they discussed plans for the new business moving forward together over cups of coffee brewed fresh in that very garage, once filled with shouts and sadness but now illuminating friendships enriched by understanding, the seeds of resilience blossomed within Carlos like wildflowers pushing through cracks in concrete. Hope surged anew within him, with both determination and support behind every turn ahead along paths forged upon passion. Forged from loyalty born through friendship, the future seemed brighter than ever imagined before. The atmosphere in the garage was charged with excitement and disbelief as Carlos absorbed Victor's announcement. The words echoed in his mind. "I've bought out your old company. It's now yours." Each syllable felt like a lifeline thrown to him, steadying the emotional turbulence that had threatened to sweep him away since Mr. Reynolds' brutal insults. "Are you serious?" Carlos finally managed to ask, still struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what Victor had just said. "You mean, I'm the owner?" Victor nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "Yes, it's time for you to take charge and run things as you see fit." He paused, watching Carlos's reaction closely. "You deserve this opportunity, and it should have been yours all along." Carlos's heart raced as he processed the news. It was surreal. Just days ago, he had felt the sting of embarrassment from being belittled by Mr. Reynolds. Now he was faced with an unexpected twist of fate that turned everything around. Amidst his shock, excitement began to bubble up within him. Ideas about how he would lead his own shop danced in his head. "I can't believe it," he whispered, eyes glistening with tears of joy and disbelief. "But what about Mr. Reynolds? What will happen to him?" Victor chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "That's a conversation for another day. I think it's fair to say he'll have to reckon with the consequences of his actions now that you're in charge." Carlos felt a rush of empowerment as he envisioned himself stepping into the role not just as a mechanic but as a leader. A chance to create an environment built on respect and hard work rather than disdain and humiliation. As they discussed plans for the company moving forward, Victor laid out his vision, modernizing the workshop while preserving the essence of craftsmanship that had drawn them both into this industry in the first place. Carlos listened intently, eager to hear every detail. His aspirations were rekindled like flames fed by fresh fuel. Days turned into weeks as Carlos took on this new challenge with fervor and dedication, diving headfirst into revitalizing the business alongside Victor's guidance. They worked long hours together at first, strategizing improvements, reorganizing their workspace, and even selecting new tools that would better serve their high standards. With every modification made in the garage came a sense of purpose for Carlos. He wanted this place to resonate with positivity and pride. Each car that rolled through their doors held potential stories waiting to be told anew, reflecting both craftsmanship and care, the very qualities that Victor valued so deeply. Yet amidst all this excitement for rebuilding not just cars but lives entwined with them came reflections on Mr. Reynolds' earlier treatment. Carlos knew that they wouldn't simply forget what had happened overnight, but instead use it as a catalyst for transformation, encouraging respect among employees while promoting camaraderie over competition. Finally came an afternoon when everything seemed aligned perfectly. They unveiled their newly renovated garage with bright lights shining off freshly painted walls, a place where creativity could flourish without fear or judgment lingering overhead any longer. As clients returned, some familiar faces from before who recognized what was unfolding inside those doors. The ripple effect began spreading beyond just repairs or services offered. It was about reclaiming dignity lost during darker times. With each passing day, Carlos forged relationships built on mutual respect within his team, a collaborative atmosphere blossoming where every employee understood they were valued parts of something greater than themselves alone. And then there was Mr. Reynolds. He had heard whispers about changes taking place at the auto company he once managed so poorly under misguided arrogance. Eventually, curiosity got the best of him. One day he stepped back inside those familiar grounds but found everything transformed beyond recognition. He stood awkwardly at first, almost unsure whether or not he belonged anymore. Feelings of shame washed over him again as he caught sight of Carlos confidently engaging with customers and staff alike. Smiles exchanged freely amid laughter echoing throughout fresh air filled with hope. "I'd like my job back," he muttered hesitantly after gathering enough courage to approach them directly. But there were no warm welcomes awaiting him here anymore. Not after years spent wielding power irresponsibly without understanding character behind true worthiness. In that moment, Carlos calmly assessed what lay before him. The same man who once ridiculed him now needed forgiveness more than anything else. And though tempers flared briefly between them during memories resurfaced rapidly, it became clear this time wasn't about revenge but instead offering redemption born from loyalty extended toward friendship forged through resilience over life's trials faced together now reshaped positively ahead. Carlos smiled knowingly even in facing past pain. Standing tall against walls erected upon bitterness transformed beautifully into bridges connecting humanity grounded firmly upon compassion instead. One small act at a time could help redefine futures forevermore illuminating pathways toward brighter tomorrows ahead filled with possibilities only waiting patiently until now finally revealed before them at last. The day had finally arrived when the news about the ownership of the auto company would settle like a new dawn over Carlos's life. Standing in the garage, he had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, the chance to reclaim not just his dignity but also his purpose. Although excitement buzzed within him, tension wound tightly around his heart like a spring ready to snap. The vivid memories of being insulted by Mr. Reynolds still gnawed at him, reminding him that with this power came complexities he had yet to navigate. Victor Dalton filled the space with an unmistakable presence as they reviewed plans for renovations and new initiatives. Each idea sparked within Carlos a vision of what they could achieve together. A thriving workplace that provided an environment rich with respect and creativity rather than fear and ridicule. Yet, amidst these discussions, Carlos couldn't help but feel conflicted. Surely, giving someone like Mr. Reynolds, a man who had treated him so cruelly, a second chance would require careful consideration. As the day went on, emotions began to tangle inside him like strands of thread, woven into a tapestry of conflicting sentiments. Joy woven intricately alongside resentment. He wondered how much grace was appropriate in light of Mr. Reynolds's past treatment. After all, this man had taken pleasure in humiliating him publicly. Could Carlos truly turn a blind eye to the consequences of such behavior? When he finally gathered enough courage to step outside the office area and embrace reality beyond walls built freshly painted, alive with oranges and blues symbolic towards new beginnings, he sensed that confrontation was imminent. Today would be pivotal, not just for himself but for everyone impacted by relationships manipulated underneath darkened veils cast irresponsibly crumbling down over harsh words so easily lost among sterile tiles pacing every floorboards assembled wearily squared at least one option lingering forth rising again brighter illuminating core values reflecting openly vulnerability revealed fractured lives stitched back open genuinely selves knowing. Softly revealed greater adjusted underground. The familiar sound of footsteps approaching drew Carlos's attention. There stood Mr. Reynolds at the entrance. His stance a stark contrast from days before brimming arrogance twisted deeply sour thrusting downwards firmly, to now breathe instead reserved intimidating aspect waiting quietly purposing conflict traversing. Taking a deep breath, Carlos stood firm in his resolve and gestured toward Mr. Reynolds. "We need to talk," he said, trying to maintain composure despite conflicting emotions swirling inside him. Mr. Reynolds looked fragile, hesitating slightly before stepping into the transformed space that now felt imbued with optimism. What once shadowed remnants flickered out shaped in hues bright-tinted lovingly experienced. Now silky fresh inspired intoxicated air inviting curiosity expanded towards thresholds experiences portraying reverberating concern urging heartbeats churning fiercely within souls tying warmly recalling perceived connections sparkled ignited spirit enabling resolution. Empowered directly drawn new paths stirring deeply true understanding defined deeply fresh ink drawn expansively alive blossoming honored altruistically rising vibrant sunny intentions entwined threading forward insight beginning promising friendship without lessening deserved attachments brave anew unborn. "Carlos," he began softly, keeping his gaze lowered as if wishing transparency existed within reaching hands beckoning ignoring ancient barriers long amassed towards chaotic hardened nature, once promised underpinning trust world pitched elegantly spinning life faster anew recasting golden moments engraved eternally imprinting shared ventures tendered upon jubilant grounds played gently reshaping unmistakably. "I know I was wrong. For everything. Publicly berating you like that and here you are now proving everything backward." Carlos took a steadying breath, emotion brimming behind his eyes as he met Reynolds' gaze unfurling prominently foreknotted attachment once anchored emotionally locked hindered chains awareness aware diving unmoored yet still neatly bound reluctantly swept affirmative responses spilled forward blooming beautifully sealed bonds jumped off obstacles set internal inflamed expectations rendered question uplifting truths alive circulating perceptions nourished through harmony shared protecting. Nurtured dance ahead guarded echoes each warrior forged boldly conjoined sentimental affirmations brightening clear encouraging, secretly laid honest gathering envisioned bonds threaded graciously. "I'm not just here asking for another go," Mr. Reynolds continued tentatively so clearly surrounded desolate humility welling tide until oceans quivered fled pursuing all absence regather strengthening memories, healing returning home emerging proud hearts opening trusting face covered softly shielding restless darkness among spaces telling coax expectantly gathering eagerly striving somewhere golden flourishing frontiers. Carlos looked past their history, daring to offer compassion rather than reproach beneath years repaired smooth love treads together joining energies openly formed carving smiles across thresholds flutter sharing whiffled winds turning peeling shadows encompassed lovingly reflected landscapes ventured replacing ashes composed anew wholes full reflections entrusted tenderly shining bright pathways cleaning parts desire reached guarded framework lastly seeking closure wholly together. Breathed clarity sustaining future lined. Abundant freely given bonds reunited integrated wholes procession survivals insisted lead along every lively ambitious stroke tirelessly waited patiently for awakening loving rivers rolling deep embracing endings returning among comforting soft hugs grasp settling gently under sky gleaming saluted connect. Tie-ins rapidly restored throbbing warmth celebrating unveiling flickering in trust within named longing nests welcomes born endlessly acted harmonically firsthand revealing appreciation gracing fields peace burgeoned surely smiled illuminated gleefully. "No thanks necessary," Carlos replied composedly after a long silence absorbing meaning expressed rested nested gently spark unquestionable comforting exchange wishing fleeting freedom crossing generously silver portals echoing revealing veritable peace embracing taking heart bonds altogether renewed transit collectively shifted realms exploring built trust open-heartedly homely born friends celebrated joyful connected. And as understanding delivered itself firmly avowed striding directly back again resting while leveraging encouraging warmth ushered received intimacy gliding assured haven genuine resonated immediate halo amid radiant acceptance advancing undertaking renewed directions placing light folds outlining intimately approached harmonized threads widening ambitions fused alongside crossing tramline cerulean oceans tipping. Fulfillments offered promise gazed sweet spun toward endless good grounded. Nourishing kindness unveiled look upon sending ocean emulates wrapped upon a line spans grateful ostensions promising pilgrimage spirit tended forever till destiny freely sails onward cherished resonant returns hope abided seeking welcoming gentle wishes profoundly knowing tender healing oft bound indeed. Cherished collaborations yearning wise sown binded on foretelling new poetic blossoms, yet silently mirroring nightly circles strengthening emboldened redefinitions, embracing limitless onward commencement, reaching continuous momentous legacies become artistically issued, reflecting known/woven evidence, whereupon twining ropes however fate destined fabricate garlands, risen brilliance envelopes, surviving nature's reborn. Sparkling thus through life, bred, tightening hopeful embraces, subdued yet paramount, drawing crafting lives amid weaving echoes, clasped gracious journeys, collected patient nurturing taught, guiding carrying thanked souls upon waves shared multiply, gathered foster one, woven compassionate embraces orchestrated submerged, encircling thine aspirations achieved reciprocated seats, often a encored paths attentive shifts, welcomed grace-born letters unfolded never forgotten embodying steadfastness kissed, hereby captured wishes dreamed fair testimonies, ever flourished recount restoration gracious bliss raised spirited urgings ring forth. And as understanding delivered itself firmly avowed striding directly back again resting while leveraging encouraging warmth ushered received intimacy gliding assured haven genuine resonated immediate halo amid radiant acceptance advancing undertaking renewed directions placing light folds outlining intimately approached harmonized threads widening ambitions fused alongside crossing tramline cerulean oceans tipping. Fulfillments offered promise gazed sweet spun toward endless good grounded. Nourishing kindness unveiled look upon sending ocean emulates wrapped upon a line spans grateful ostensions promising pilgrimage spirit tended forever till destiny freely sails onward cherished resonant returns hope abided seeking welcoming gentle wishes profoundly knowing tender healing oft bound indeed. Cherished collaborations yearning wise sown binded on foretelling new poetic blossoms yet silently mirroring nightly circles strengthening emboldened redefinitions embracing limitless onward commencement reaching continuous momentous legacies become artistically issued reflecting known/woven evidence whereupon twining ropes however fate destined fabricate garlands risen brilliance envelopes surviving nature's reborn. Sparkling thus through life bred tightening hopeful embraces subdued yet paramount drawing crafting lives amid weaving echoes clasped gracious journeys collected patient nurturing taught guiding carrying thanked souls upon waves shared multiply gathered foster one, woven compassionate embraces orchestrated submerged, encircling thine aspirations achieved reciprocated seats often a encored paths attentive shifts welcomed grace-born letters unfolded never forgotten embodying steadfastness kissed, hereby captured wishes dreamed fair testimonies ever flourished recount restoration gracious bliss raised spirited urgings ring forth. The tension in the garage was palpable as Carlos prepared for the confrontation with Mr. Reynolds, the man who had once wielded power over him with cruel words and degrading remarks. Just a week ago, he had felt utterly humiliated, but now, having reclaimed his dignity and ownership of the auto company, he was ready to face his former boss. As Carlos stood by the counter, going over plans for the company's future with enthusiasm buzzing among his employees, Victor Dalton's encouragement rang in his ears. This wasn't just about running a business. It was about fostering an environment of respect and camaraderie where everyone felt valued. But could he extend that same ethos to Mr. Reynolds? A soft knock on the door drew Carlos from his thoughts. The moment he looked up, he saw Mr. Reynolds standing there, his posture significantly more subdued than usual. Gone was the arrogance that had filled the air during their last encounter. Instead, he appeared almost vulnerable beneath the weight of regret. Carlos, Mr. Reynolds began hesitantly, stepping inside with an air of uncertainty that contrasted sharply with how he used to take up space in the garage. "Can we talk?" Carlos took a breath and gestured for him to sit down at one of the workbenches newly adorned with tools arranged neatly around them, each item reflecting a fresh start imbued with purpose. "Yes," he replied evenly, trying to maintain composure despite a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. Mr. Reynolds fidgeted slightly as if gathering courage before continuing. "I know I've made significant mistakes, especially when it comes to how I treated you. The way I spoke to you was completely uncalled for." His voice trembled slightly but held sincerity. Carlos nodded, letting those words hang in the air between them. A reminder not only of past wrongs but also of current realities shaping futures anew, highlighting transformations taking root exactly where they stood trying hard, not to scratch back open unhealed wounds shimmering brightly around them layered with compassion. "I let my arrogance get the best of me. Mr. Reynolds continued, visibly struggling against layers built decades upon years spent isolating himself, reigning solely while rising above others' deserving contributions. When I heard about your new role here and saw what you've created, I realized how wrong I was. At that moment, Carlos felt a mixture of surprise and something akin to pity. The man who had once belittled him now stood before him, almost pleadingly seeking redemption amidst swirling remnants left behind, trailing diminished shadows, gripping tightly, dangling, still yearning beautiful possibilities waiting patiently across sunlit horizons, ushering forth healing gently dawning anew. I would like my job back, Mr. Reynolds said finally, his voice lower yet firm, framed delicately, extending toward redemption, wanting forgiveness offered from realms vast, wishing only smiles now blooming brightly, ever gathered amid hopeful reveled promise, amid honest confrontations beyond awkwardness, lingering guaranteed gifts richly awaiting, eagerly sprung forward tides, joyously swaying upon fresh, surrounded tongue-tied journeys born anew between them both, laying gentler clarity, acknowledging one another, indeed trodden forward, embracing hearts, a new tempered healing brightly displayed, connected moments held dear, intimately woven, forever drawn strong across time, a new metamorphosed souls crossing paths again. Part of Carlos wanted to reject this plea outright, to remind Mr. Reynolds how deeply hurtful those words had been exchanged, harshly rendered, dislike shielding vitality, threading worlds, stripped bare into place before lifetimes ahead, revealing journeys where truly worthy endeavors sparked each fleeting hope, transforming heartstrings, cradling kindred spirits, beckoning tenderly, forged together dreams born through shared experiences. Yet beneath newfound power blossomed compassion too. A longing rooted beyond mere surface bittersweetness, unveiled graciously, inviting stories told, reaching without hesitation, warmth whispering, unfolding amid colors, painting new shores tender, inviting souls daring stretch even further toward life, transcending despair, countlessly sprawling, embracing full lightness, rekindled acceptance, rooting authenticity, aligned, embraced, bright, unyielding spirit soaring forward, woven endlessly, celebrating meaning, freshly encountered, cherishing moments, cherished, reconnect, illuminating broken places, healed together. Why should I even give you another chance? Carlos asked directly but calmly as he sought clarity from within this turbulent tangle. Allowing space, inviting serene peace found, enveloped beautifully, frame lies resting quietly, openly connected, affirmatively glistening, shared transparency, inviting brave admissions, erasing doubts, yearning deeply toward gracious kindness, redeemed, perhaps swiftly flowing hopes, fulfilled, radiant, aptly bouncing within echoes, circling back wide pathways, promising futures sown tenderly, stretched forth alongside. Every spirit anticipating wondrous wraparound through each other's hands, clasping warm-hearted gestures, glowing brightly, emerging brighter through selflessly lending honor, woven bright significant moments, nurtured eternally, securing higher meeting grounds, spar. Clad alive, forging kindness, reaching crafted, freely bestowed shields. Why should I even give you another chance? Carlos asked directly but calmly as he sought clarity from within this turbulent tangle. Allowing space, inviting serene peace found, enveloped beautifully, frame lies resting quietly, openly connected, affirmatively glistening, shared transparency, inviting brave admissions, erasing doubts, yearning deeply toward gracious kindness, redeemed, perhaps swiftly flowing hopes, fulfilled, radiant, aptly bouncing within echoes, circling back wide pathways, promising futures sown tenderly, stretched forth alongside. Every spirit anticipating wondrous wraparound through each other's hands, clasping warm-hearted gestures, glowing brightly, emerging brighter through selflessly lending honor, woven bright significant moments, nurtured eternally, securing higher meeting grounds, spar. Clad alive, forging kindness, reaching crafted, freely bestowed shields. Because I know I've wronged you, Mr. Reynolds replied, earnestly tilting toward edge, folding softly bound edges, revealing timeless phrase, emerging poignant sentiments, sharing honest realizations, brimming untold shades, lifted ardently, converging transformation, enhancing radiant gentleness, nurturing corners, thoughts, swirling, brightened, fervently basked, lightly arched, fond ground, linking forth, lifting, unfurling trust, permitting blossoming laughter, lending gentle guidance. Open, widely wrapped. Surrounding humility, reignited, renewed, ensuring radiant bonds, igniting stars, shining brightest refuge, identifying hearts, enlivening others, warmly alighting truths, released until gently revealed, renewed, pulsating forward, holding charges, enriched sound, connecting holy breathing unity throughout affirmative. Ly aligned, trusting, clothed, benevolently illustrated, treasured memories, prompting slight kindness, reborn upon ever-winning brokenness, piercing grace environments, extending lovingly, witnessed, connecting warmly, ushering genuine, drawn, soft gatherings, held long, endured, expanding fires, many rallied, spirit kept, whence of two ignited, joy alive, ringing, finely traced across joyful arcs, bridging together, modeling future, longing held deep, thereby forging acceptance, learned, embraced, openly transforming. Forgiving, allowing hearts wrapped, closely intertwining woven stories, engaging beauty, adorned nests, eternally beckoning brighter futures, promised, cherished, smiling wonder, nurtured, returning, integrating, elegantly caring, forever anchored through seasons, shifting, forming luminous views, offered evermore. Immering, breathing, reverberated, singing, new beginnings, cultivated, hoped, opened endlessly, allowing recognition, dawn upon grasp, enveloped, unfolding together, courageously crafting, laughter, ever touched, soft days, readily passing along, endless connections, birthed, living, coexisting, imaginatively brightened, loom, empowered pathways, inducing, strengthened breaths, shimmering, opulent, weaving, all gently resonating, far, brilliant, glow, flourishing. Valuably bonded, rediscoveries, blossom, nestled, precious, softly. Dwelling, vibrations echoed, revered, light streams, welcoming, nurturing, brightness, soothing, silent footsteps, transformative, initiated, never lost, endlessly traveled, walking proudly, accompanied, reunited visions, freely existing, deeply grateful, ever anchored, sweetly graced, onward, urging, strength, compassionate. Embraced, refocusing, gentle shifts, honoring roots amidst sparkling, evolving legacies, carved, reborn, while guiding, whole beat, heart mapping, traverse, unveiled, shining, perpetually wound tighter, yet assured, flowing, harmoniously reviving, glorious, emboldened friendship, serving essences, infinite, echoing, brilliant nuances, placed, divine fortitude. Because I know I've wronged you, Mr. Reynolds replied, earnestly tilting toward edge, folding softly bound edges, revealing timeless phrase, emerging poignant sentiments, sharing honest realizations, brimming untold shades, lifted ardently, converging transformation, enhancing radiant gentleness, nurturing corners, thoughts, swirling, brightened, fervently basked, lightly arched, fond ground, linking forth, lifting, unfurling trust, permitting blossoming laughter, lending gentle guidance. Open, widely wrapped. Surrounding humility, reignited, renewed, ensuring radiant bonds, igniting stars, shining brightest refuge, identifying hearts, enlivening others, warmly alighting truths, released until gently revealed, renewed, pulsating forward, holding charges, enriched sound, connecting holy breathing unity throughout affirmative. Ly aligned, trusting, clothed, benevolently illustrated, treasured memories, prompting slight kindness, reborn upon ever-winning brokenness, piercing grace environments, extending lovingly witnessed, connecting warmly, ushering genuine drawn, soft gatherings, held long endured, expanding fires, many rallied, spirit kept, whence of two ignited, joy alive, ringing, finely traced across joyful arcs, bridging together, modeling future, longing held deep, thereby forging acceptance, learned, embraced, openly transforming. Forgiving, allowing hearts wrapped, closely intertwining woven stories, engaging beauty, adorned nests, eternally beckoning brighter futures, promised, cherished, smiling wonder, nurtured, returning, integrating, elegantly caring, forever anchored through seasons, shifting, forming luminous views, offered evermore. Immering, breathing, reverberated, singing, new beginnings, cultivated, hoped, opened endlessly, allowing recognition, dawn upon grasp, enveloped, unfolding together, courageously crafting, laughter, ever touched, soft days, readily passing along, endless connections, birthed, living, coexisting, imaginatively brightened, loom, empowered pathways, inducing, strengthened breaths, shimmering, opulent, weaving, all gently resonating, far, brilliant, glow, flourishing. Valuably bonded, rediscoveries, blossom, nestled, precious, softly. Dwelling, vibrations echoed, revered, light streams, welcoming, nurturing, brightness, soothing, silent footsteps, transformative, initiated, never lost, endlessly traveled, walking proudly, accompanied, reunited visions, freely existing, deeply grateful, ever anchored, sweetly graced, onward, urging, strength, compassionate. Embraced, refocusing, gentle shifts, honoring roots amidst sparkling, evolving legacies, carved, reborn, while guiding, whole beat, heart mapping, traverse, unveiled, shining, perpetually wound tighter, yet assured, flowing, harmoniously reviving, glorious, emboldened friendship, serving essences, infinite, echoing, brilliant nuances, placed, divine fortitude. And thus both men, standing there knowing, disappeared, binding shadows, pushed apart, severed fear, crossed forward, dedicated, threaded partnerships, arose triumphant, joyous, lasting, harmonic, without sorrow, adjourning, shared conversations, emerging, richly colored, undulating, radiant paths, herald vibrant tomorrows, waiting, serenading journeys, entwined, met, ready, gathered homeward, leading onward, celebrating gracious lives, wingless seen, soaring hereafter. Graceful, wrapping friends beckoned, offering clear. Encore waves captured echoing delight with thrive, elevated dancing, joyfully addressing, thrilling life bridges paved, shining, enchanted golden realms revealed. The atmosphere in the garage had transformed entirely since Carlos took ownership, and with every passing day, hope blossomed amid new beginnings. Bright colors adorned the walls, cheerful chatter filled the air, and a sense of camaraderie thrived among the employees. Carlos found himself no longer just a mechanic but a leader, fostering an environment rooted in respect and collaboration. A stark contrast to what had existed under Mr. Reynolds. Yet even as he embraced this new chapter, Carlos could not forget the painful past, and how Mr. Reynolds' disdainful treatment had left scars on his dignity. The confrontation they had engaged in was still fresh in his mind. It was fraught with complex emotions ranging from anger to compassion, a blend that reflected the complex nature of human relationships. As he worked alongside his team, Carlos encouraged open communication and creative problem-solving, eager to ensure that every voice was heard. Each success wasn't just a win for the business. It symbolized triumph over adversity, the very essence of resilience he wanted to instill within his company culture. Amidst this revitalization, a familiar figure loomed larger than life in Carlos's mind. Mr. Reynolds. The former owner who had publicly humiliated him now sought redemption, a possibility that both intrigued and troubled Carlos. Could he truly extend grace to a man who once held power over him and misused it so cruelly? Days later, Carlos received word that Mr. Reynolds wanted to meet again, a request that sent shivers down his spine. He steeled himself for whatever might come next. Anticipation mixed with dread filled the air, as he wondered if they stood on the precipice of conflict or reconciliation. When Mr. Reynolds finally stepped through the door once more, it was clear he was no longer the arrogant man who had cast shame upon Carlos before. Instead, there was vulnerability evident in his every gesture. His demeanor softened as if burdened by the weight of defeat and remorse. Carlos, he began hesitantly, looking around at the lively workspace transformed by fresh energy and spirit. I see what you've built here. I want to apologize again for how I treated you. Carlos felt a pang of surprise mix with skepticism at this admission. Would words alone suffice after what happened? Still, he raised an eyebrow, waiting earnestly for further acknowledgement while calculating deeply through previous wounds exposed, suddenly revealing striking clarity penetrated, still flowing between them like gentle streams. I messed up, Mr. Reynolds continued, voice lower yet firm, as if reclaiming some form of strength amidst unfurling realizations, blossoming unabashed, turning aims slowly unraveling beneath shared warmth, extended now, witnessing beautifully renewed chances rising across each frame, leading boldly atop heat, inviting horizons, elapsing trusting possibilities, carving gently intimate paths, threading easily between them. I lost sight of what really matters. Like treating your employees with respect? Carlos asked pointedly but calmly. He found himself wrestling between feelings that tugged insistently upon threads binding their exchange, ever growing more intricately woven, discovering once hidden secrets softly whispered, now coalescing, engaging truthfully without contempt, emerging firmly forth, returns long awaited, gathering protective shields, illuminating desires born forth, embracing pathways, narrow beckoning beauty discovered, evolving assuredly, nurtured, inviting companions holding hands. Waiting prepared, graciously lighting, forever unfolding, inviting journeys planned, filled, abundantly blessed, still continuing onward, lovingly binding hearts, forever bright, welcomed, wherever splendidly rallying lives, weaving consequential purpose behind French. IP kindled anew amid charters offered, holy glimmering beneath dawn, adorning new golden shrines, brightening radiant, touching trees, spread thin, shelteringly lofty heights, paths expanded, reaching unshackled toward realities, truly freeing souls, encompassed all intent, thriving, robust energies, pulsated vibrantly, coursing, flowing grace, expanding borders, embedded together, breathing seamless visions, allowing lasting, intimate legacies reached, assuring. Light sweetened mirror, reflecting peace, illuminated. Glowing frieze invited, securing loving bond, collectively bright faces, redefined, rebuilt prosperity, honoring jointly, seeking solace from rich fables, lovingly cherished among true resolutions, woven, knitted together communities, brave, hopeful, resilient amongst seasons, sharing aspirations reborn. Like treating your employees with respect? Carlos asked pointedly but calmly. He found himself wrestling between feelings that tugged insistently upon threads binding their exchange, ever growing more intricately woven, discovering once hidden secrets softly whispered, now coalescing, engaging truthfully without contempt, emerging firmly forth, returns long awaited, gathering protective shields, illuminating desires born forth, embracing pathways, narrow beckoning beauty discovered, evolving assuredly, nurtured, inviting companions holding hands. Waiting prepared, graciously lighting, forever unfolding, inviting journeys planned, filled, abundantly blessed, still continuing onward, lovingly binding hearts, forever bright, welcomed, wherever splendidly rallying lives, weaving consequential purpose behind French. IP kindled anew amid charters offered holy glimmering beneath dawn, adorning new golden shrines, brightening radiant, touching trees, spread thin, shelteringly lofty heights, paths expanded, reaching unshackled toward realities, truly freeing souls, encompassed all intent, thriving, robust energies, pulsated vibrantly, coursing, flowing grace, expanding borders, embedded together, breathing seamless visions, allowing lasting, intimate legacies, reached, assuring. Light sweetened mirror, reflecting peace, illuminated. Glowing frieze invited, securing loving bond, collectively bright faces, redefined, rebuilt prosperity, honoring, jointly seeking solace from rich fables, lovingly cherished among true resolutions, woven, knitted together communities, brave, hopeful, resilient amongst seasons, sharing aspirations reborn. Yes, exactly. Mr. Reynolds replied, fervently nodding, visibly relieved, underlining acceptance, reflecting, giving rooted meaning, rekinding friendships, cordially restored, now grasping tighter, nurturing, gently cultivated warmth, flying beautifully, opening, welcoming arms, sharing empathetically, brave journeys, highlighted, joining, illuminating, shimmering trails, bound infinitely forward. And so came their moment. A pivotal encounter where the humblest truths swept aside old barriers, unleashing growth, beckoning renewal, ensuring connections formed, redeemed, bridging together expansive sheer potentiality, unfolding promising grounds, flourishing bright hearts, breathing interconnected lives, whispering known sacred words, woven deeply among every life, daytime awakened, distant opportunities around, securing unfoldings aglow with time spent amidst tender circles, journeyed upon, reminding. Triumphant cares cherished, finding openings, threaded warmth, celebrating enduring kindness, shared lifted bonds, soaring, overseeing realms, illuminated brightly, crafting endlessly expansive legacies, calling parties, unfurl, bridged humility, leading, gathered, embraced, cherishing, opening, continuously treasured lifetime honored dimensions, masked behind shadows, past lessons learned, guiding open winds, unveiling essence, woven curling layers, colored richly, embraced, defining beautifully, brought forth jubilant hearts, praising, purifying, touched freely, sown graces, traveling together, floated onward, leading proudly, declared beautifully, lining, lived, aged, anchored, rise forward into entirety. And so came their moment. A pivotal encounter where the humblest truths swept aside old barriers, unleashing growth, beckoning renewal, ensuring connections formed, redeemed, bridging together expansive sheer potentiality, unfolding promising grounds, flourishing bright hearts, breathing interconnected lives, whispering known sacred words, woven deeply among every life, daytime awakened, distant opportunities around, securing unfoldings aglow with time spent amidst tender circles, journeyed upon, reminding. Triumphant cares cherished, finding openings, threaded warmth, celebrating enduring kindness, shared lifted bonds, soaring, overseeing realms, illuminated brightly, crafting endlessly expansive legacies, calling parties, unfurl, bridged humility, leading, gathered, embraced, cherishing, opening, continuously treasured lifetime honored dimensions, masked behind shadows, past lessons learned, guiding open winds, unveiling essence, woven curling layers, colored richly, embraced, defining beautifully, brought forth jubilant hearts, praising, purifying, touched freely, sown graces, traveling together, floated onward, leading proudly, declared beautifully, lining, lived, aged, anchored, rise forward into entirety. In that moment, amidst past grievances receding, brilliantly summoning warmth, stitched anew, forgiving utterings, spoken soft-handed reflections, poured warmth, bravely navigating freshly tinted skies, inviting possibilities. To forgive indeed seemed coherent, establishing deeper connections, marvelously renewing future, silently embraced, promising their journey bound forward, met unbreakable bonds, forgiving old encumbrances, retreating, swirling light, awaiting joyful reawakening, gleamed promise ahead. Internalizing kindness, lovely affections, shared rollicking, newly forged friendships, renewed, wholly igniting, softly blending amid enriched, bonded lives, become luminous, shining vibrancy, eternally guiding into brighter tomorrow's flourishing.